I think this is going to be the death of the ACA, but it's also going to be the death of some Americans who don't go get screenings, who don't get diagnosed early enough in order to get treatment, who go in and instead of being stage 1 cancer are going to be stage 4 cancer. And we're going to hear horrible stories because Americans are going to choose to drop health insurance that they cannot afford.
Anna Navarro went on Abby Phillip's show on CNN to go up against CNN's resident MAGA troll, Scott Jennings. The subject of this section of their panel debate was the Democrats' plan for healthcare, the Republicans' plan for healthcare or lack thereof. Also joining the panel was James Clyburn, Brianna Lyman, another MAGA pundit, and Dylan Douglas. Sarah Seidner was filling in for Abby Phillip on this episode of her show. I want to share my thoughts on this discussion as well. Let's get into it together.
We're going to start with you, Brianna, because you didn't get a chance to jump in. And I guess one of the big questions is because Republicans have, as Scott Jennings right here at the table, have complained about Obamacare ad nauseum. There are problems with it. Mm-hmm. What is the plan that Republicans have? What is the robust health care plan that Republicans are proposing?
Well, if I was a Republican in office, I would probably propose repealing Obamacare, given how expensive it's gotten for the American people. But this is a conversation that could have been happening over the past few weeks had Democrats voted on the clean CR in September to kind of hash out these details. I want to go back to something Dylan and Anna said. Dylan, you mentioned that Democrats are the party of humanity. Look, they were so humane that they were willing to let federal employees go without a paycheck and Americans go without SNAP benefits. That being said, as horrible as the shutdown has been for the average American who is a federal employee or who relies on government programs, I don't think it was politically toxic to Democrats. And that's probably because Democrats know exactly what they're doing. To Scott's point, this was an election benefit. Back in March, NBC came out with a poll. It found that Democratic base were really upset with the leadership. They said, you're not doing enough to fight back against Donald Trump. Dylan, I think you alluded to this. And one of the things that a poll found is that a lot of the Democratic base would be happy if the government was to shut down because it meant Democrats were fighting Donald Trump and the GOP. So Democrats played their cards right in September. They said an election's happening in a month and a half. We're going to keep the government shut down. They shellacked Republicans last week. It worked in their benefit. And I don't think there is a political downside to what Democrats have done. And now they've just wasted weeks where Americans are now finally, hopefully, going to get all the back pay they've been waiting on.
What about the health care? I'm going to ask you, because you're in touch with your Republican friends. What is the plan that Republicans are putting forward? Because you do hear over and over and over again that Obamacare is terrible. You hear it every single time from Republicans. This is a mess. Why do subsidies need to exist? But I have yet to hear a robust plan from Republicans.
Well, generally, they want more free market choices. They want people to feel like that their insurance actually is usable. Right now, premiums are really high. Deductibles are really high. I mean, I don't know about you all, but I know tons of people who have insurance that would tell you, it doesn't even feel like I have insurance at all. I pay. Look, I have a small business back in Kentucky. Every year I get a letter from the people that we get our insurance from. Your premiums that you pay for your employees are going up, 10, 15, 20%. I can tell you this, the insurance benefits never get better. And the employees that I have would tell you, it doesn't ever feel like they're, any better off because of it. We pay more, but the health outcomes and the insurance benefits they get aren't any better. In fact, sometimes they're worse. And so it just feels broken, and it feels like you don't really have any choices. To me,
but you don't have choices because Republicans have not shown a robust plan. I hear the diagnosis of the problems, but where is the legislation, the full legislation that you can say, hey, we're going to replace this. This is our plan. Obamacare is over here. We don't want this.
I'm not sure Republicans are going to be for a government-run or government-mandated system. What they're going to be for is free market choices, giving people more choices that would probably drive down costs and put them in more direct touch with their own health care. Right now, they're in touch with insurance companies, which don't do anything.
But you know what, Scott, there's a lot of things in Obamacare, there's a lot of things in the ACA that Americans like, whether they are Republicans or Democrats or anything in between. The idea that you can't get kicked out of health care because of a pre-existing condition, the idea that there's no caps, all of these things are things that we've all benefited from, particularly the neediest amongst us. Look, I think this issue is not going to go away. And we're going to be talking about this because we're going to hear horrible stories. Mm-hmm. People are not going to be able to afford their insurance. I don't think even with subsidies, they're going to be able to afford the premiums that are hiking up 100, 200, 300%.
Wasn't
And
Obamacare supposed to fix that?
When people, no, well, not without the universal, I mean, there's
Affordable Care Act.
Yeah,
Affordable was the first
listen,
word.
The Republicans have been chipping away at the ACA, and I think this is going to be the death of the ACA, but it's also going to be the death of some Americans who don't go get screenings, who don't get diagnosed early enough in order to get treatment, who go in and instead of being stage 1 cancer are going to be stage 4 cancer. And we're going to hear horrible stories because Americans are going to choose to drop health insurance that they cannot afford. And we as a country have got to figure this issue out.
I completely agree with Anna Navarro. And Anna Navarro has quickly become one of my favorite people who goes on Abby Phillip show on CNN because she actually seems to care about other human beings, unlike all the MAGA people, the Scott Jennings and the Ben Fergusons that just care about scoring points and saying what about Biden and defending the dear leader and all of that. All of that said, this is a rare instance where I do agree with some of what Scott Jennings says here, not all of what Scott Jennings says, but he talks about people just feeling like their insurance is pretty much worthless, and I'm somebody that feels that way. I'm looking at I get my insurance through the ACA because I'm self-employed. I'm looking at a really high monthly premium and a deductible of $10,500 a month. And that's the cheapest insurance I can get through the ACA, and that pays nothing until the deductible is paid. So I do feel like I really like to just risk it and say, I'll just pay out of pocket if I have to, but there's always the chance of something catastrophic happening. Now, the flip side of all this with Scott Jennings is just, Republicans don't want a government-run health plan, and we'll have it be the free market. That's not a solution. The free market is going to be even worse. I last had insurance through an employer in 2005, so 20 years of being self-employed. And before Obamacare, what I could get on the free market was even worse than through Obamacare. Now, it was better for a while, and like Anna Navarro has said, they've chipped away. Republicans have so much at it that it has gotten bad with the ACA. But just saying the free market is not a solution. With the free market, we get pre-existing conditions, we get no caps where, if you get sick and it's $1 million or $2 million, you can literally run out of insurance in your lifetime, which I'm sure people listening to this in other countries would just think that is unbelievable, but it's true. I think what the Democrats should say is, hey, Republicans, it's on you now. You fix this. You've got a year, come up with a plan. They've had 15 years to come up with a plan, but you got a year until the midterms. Come up with a plan, sell that to the American public, and if you don't come up with a plan, then we're going to run on Medicare for all in the midterms. Scott Jennings and some of MAGA now, strangely, before it was, you can't do Medicare for all because then what happens to the insurance companies and all their employees? Well, now Scott Jennings and Donald Trump are saying, just give the people the money directly to the people and take the insurance companies out of that. Hey, Medicare for all solves that problem. But of course, they're not going to do that. Republicans aren't going to come up with a plan. And I don't think many Democrats are really going to fight for Medicare for all, sadly.
You asked Scott about, just real quick, you asked him about what the Republican plan is. And he couldn't answer. There's no plan.
I literally said
and the
free
thing
market,
about Donald Trump
choices,
is he's
lower
not
cost.
he's not patient.
Free market isn't a plan. Free market people die because they run out of insurance. Free market people can't get insurance because they have pre-existing conditions. I have a friend who was born with a hole in her heart, and when Obamacare hit, that was the first time in her life that she was able to get insurance as an adult. Insurance companies wouldn't insure her. So she's somebody who would have no insurance if we go back to a completely free market system.
About Donald Trump is not an outsider anymore. He's been in government a very long period of time. And then to your point about the SNAP's benefit, about Democrats being the party of humility, a government shutdown is an ugly business. Two wrongs don't make a right. Donald Trump was the one that refused that the rainy day fund that SNAP had.
No, Democrats refused to open the government.
No, they refused. There was a rainy day fund in place for that very reason of a possible government shutdown. Two courts ruled against it. He has to do it. He still may not comply. Who knows? So don't say that's a Republican talking
Democrats
point.
voted to keep the government shut down.
Obamacare, there's issues with it, but if you break it, you bought it. We can fix it within the system, or we can do something else. Your point about making it privatized, there's a lot of private healthcare insurance out there. None of it is affordable.
But
And if you think of getting rid of an affordable
you've
option
been in
would make
Congress
it
and you
more
have
so.
seen vote after vote after vote to repeal Obamacare. And the question is to
75.
replace it with what?
Nothing, a concept.
Correct.
We're still here in the time. When two courts said to Trump, feed these children, he has appealed that.
Why can't those
Why
two
won't he
judges?
feed the children?
Why won't Democrats feed the children? Why don't we have? Hold on. Why don't we have two judges say to Democrats, "You must vote to open the government because kids are hungry"?
Wait, but here's the
What
thing.
two
Do two
judges?
unelected judges have that authority?
Just
I don't
answer
think
the
so.
question. You can answer the question with your question all you want to, but the fact of the matter is,
An unelected judge probably does not have the authority to tell the executive
Well, there
branch
are
what to
three
do.
different branches
Well,
of
they
government.
did.
This is
my
to
question.
call
They can
equal.
and they
This is
did.
supposed to be
And
called
Do you believe a
snaps
judge?
The Supreme
work
Court.
without.
Do you believe as a member of Congress, a judge can compel the executive to spend money that you haven't appropriated?
yes, I do.
Oh.
Yes, I do.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought we didn't want kings.
Nobody
Maybe we
wants
need
king.
king for a day. What do we need? I mean,
Okay, but wait.
that is literally a king spending money that is not
The judge
appropriated.
is not a king. The
No, you're
judge-
turning the president into one if he
No,
can
no.
spend without appropriation.
Well, now, if you got a rainy day fund, it was appropriated at
Correct.
one time. The fund didn't come out of the air. The money is sitting there. Now, they didn't appropriate it yesterday or the day before, but the money was appropriated last year sometime, and the rainy day fund was there for this purpose.
Who
And rather than
appropriated
use
the,
it
who
to
appro- who appropriated the $40 billion for
court.
Argentina?
My view is, as a look, you guys have been railing against Trump being authoritarian, having too much power, too much executive power, and at the same time, Democrats have been arguing that he should go out and spend money that has not been appropriated
The
this
money was
year
Has been
appropriated.
by
appropriated.
Congress.
It's $3 billion
Where did the money
that's
come
in a
from?
rainy day fund.
Where did the rainy day fund come from?
Was it specifically for this purpose?
Yes, correct. It was
I don't
three.
know.
It was three. I know for a fact it was $3 billion that's appropriated through snaps, specifically for either disaster relief situations or government shutdown. Trump said he didn't want to spend the money. People are going hungry because of it.
And think about the logic pretzel here from Scott Jennings. We've got, as Anna Navarro brings up there, and Scott Jennings doesn't address it, who appropriated the money for Argentina, $40 billion for Argentina. We can come up with money for Argentina. We can come up, they're claiming it's private funds for remodeling, quote unquote, the White House and building the ballroom. We'll see. They're continuing to pay, and they've continued to pay the ICE goons. But if we cannot come up with money to pay literally so people, women and children, can eat, what are we doing in the richest country in the world when we have Scott Jennings on here with his Rolex and Trump having great Gatsby parties at the White House? If we don't have some money set aside that we can literally feed the hungry in our country, what are we doing? But let me know what you think about all this. Do you agree with Scott Jennings that the ACA should go away? Again, I have problems with the ACA. I think we should have a single-payer healthcare system, or at the very least, allow people to buy into Medicare. That's what I would do if I could. I would just buy into Medicare. But do you agree with him that we should just let the free market handle all of this, go back to what we had before the ACA? Or do you agree with Anna Navarro and some of the other ones on this Phillip panel who say to Scott Jennings that we can't go back to what we had before? Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I am Chris on Culture, and I'll see you in the next video.